Hey there, it's Mackenzie, your host of Winning. We're looking for sponsors for the podcast. If you have a business that you would like to promote to thousands of people, send us an email at podcastwinning@gmail.com or send us a message on social media. I cannot wait to hear from you. Now on to the show.
Winning is your guide to making it in business. Join our award-winning host and entrepreneur, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and special guests in casual conversations that will educate and inspire you on your business journey. Winning will help you learn the hard lessons the easy way with guidance from celebrated entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's fun. It's informative. It's winning.
Hello, welcome to Winning. I am your host, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and today's guest is Sky McLean. How are you,
I'm
Sky?
great, thank you. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm so excited to have you on. We always chat a little bit before, and I told Sky, I feel like you've accomplished so much, and you've been doing this for less than 10 years. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
To let you know who Sky is, she's a Canadian entrepreneur building a hospitality empire with her company, Basecamp Resorts. And it is the fastest growing hospitality brand in Western Canada, which is really cool. Sky has an MBA in real estate from York University. And at 29, she purchased her first condo in Canmore, Alberta to rent out as an Airbnb. And 4 years later, in 2017, she launched Basecamp Resorts. And it is a hospitality brand that combines comforts of an Airbnb with the amenities and convenience of a hotel. Now there's properties in Banff, Canmore, Lake Louise, Revelstoke, Golden, and Kananaskis. Oh, that's a mouthful. With more properties in the future. And she designs and curates each property to ensure that it's a home away from home experience for guests with modern mountain aesthetic and vibe, which is so cool because it's such a difference between a regular hotel. And I think it's probably more of a special experience for their guests. So that's Sky. I don't know if that's in a nutshell. That's a lot of info, and you've done some really cool things. So why don't you just take a minute to tell the people that are listening kind of a little bit more about yourself and kind of how you started on this journey?
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much. I guess how I started was exactly how you described it. That was great. I bought a condo in Canmore. I actually didn't even know really what Airbnb was or how it worked. I didn't have a profile. I was like, what's this? But it just so happened that the condo was zoned to be either short-term rental or live in it. I lived in it for a year, and then I was always going away for the weekend or doing this or doing that. I thought, what the heck? I'll just put on Airbnb and see what happens. I had a job at the time, but the supplemental income sounded appealing, and it was so busy. I started staying at friends' houses and staying at my boyfriend's house because I was like, I don't want to stay at home. I want to make money on Airbnb. And so that was how I got exposed to, the hospitality industry. I was working in real estate. And then I got a job I was in Calgary, and I got a job at a real estate company. And as a matter of fact, I got fired after 25 days on the job. So it was the most devastating thing of my life because, as you said, I have an MBA, and I was like, I finally have a real person job, and I can be proud of myself, and my parents can be proud of me. And now I'm fired. So I was like, I'm never going to feel like that again. I'm going to start a business. And so having had this experience on Airbnb in Canmore, I was like, I will just take that experience and scale it. And so I'll build a 32-unit hotel with the premise, as is Basecamp right now, is that it's a home away from home experience, but in a branded setting. And so what that means is it's predictable, high quality, 24/7 service, all the things that people look for in a brand, but in that home away from home setting.
Yeah, that's super cool. And I mean, 20 years ago, maybe there was Airbnb, I don't even know, but it wasn't a thing. I'll say it wasn't a popular thing. You were going on a holiday or going away, you stay in a hotel. Where now it's lots of people don't, they don't want to stay in a traditional hotel, right? They want the amenities of it, but they want a different experience. So I think what you're doing is so cool. And I love how you started off by saying you got fired because I'm sure at the time that was the most devastating thing that could have happened to you.
Oh, it was terrible.
But,
it was terrible. And actually, to be totally
Yeah.
honest, up until very recently, I wouldn't have said that. I would have said, it didn't work out or something. I was really embarrassed for forever.
Yeah. I actually, I recorded another podcast a while ago, and I guess when this airs, people may have heard it or not yet, but I think that thought of being fired or being laid off, you take it so personally. And it could be a difference of opinions or whatnot, but probably it's more of a business decision, right? From the person that's doing it, but it's life-changing for you. And you could have taken that moment and, gone on a downward spiral on it, but you did. You did the exact opposite. You took that moment and you're like, this is never going to happen again. I'm going to do something for myself, because you're not going to fire yourself.
No, that's exactly right. So, yes.
Yeah, that's super cool. So you have an MBA in real estate. When you were completing that, were you planning to have your own hotels, or was that just a truly spinoff from having the Airbnb?
No, I knew nothing about hotels other than like how to stay in them. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I was not in hospitality. Like, I have friends and, people who work here too, who they have careers in hospitality. I did not have a career in hospitality. It was really just my experience running that Airbnb in Canmore. And actually, while I was still employed, I borrowed some money from my mom and bought another condo in Canmore for my Airbnb side hustle, which was going on while I was at work. And then, one thing led to another, and I started Basecamp.
Yeah, that's super cool. Who would think, right? That you start out by just thinking, I'll just do some, like you say, side hustle, make some extra money, rent out my house, and look what you did. That's super cool. Did you always, when you were growing up, were you always interested in real estate? Was that, obviously you've got an MBA and it interests you, but was that something that started out when you were younger, or where did that interest come from?
Oh yeah, I was always very interested in it, even as a kid. My parents always loved to go to open houses and like look at houses. And my dad was an engineer and he was into architecture. And so we would always like traipse around Toronto going to these open houses. And I couldn't figure out what the point was. I was like, why are we going to look at all these houses if we're not going to buy them? Let's buy them. Let's buy something. Let's do something. And, my mom would always tell me this story. Listen, when I was young, I wanted to buy a house at Yonge and Lawrence and renovate it and sell it. And your dad didn't want to. And if we had done that idea, we would be, real rich right now. And it's true, they would be really rich if they had done that over and over again, or if they had held the properties or whatever. But anyways, we can't go back in time. But hearing that story like over and over and over again, I was like, well, there's obviously something to be said about real estate. At the time I'm like 10 years old, but I hear this story and we're running around looking at open houses, and it just kind of got me going in like the real estate mindset. But then, you go to high school, go to university, don't really know what you want to do. But it was always on the back of my mind that I wanted to be in real estate, and not as a realtor, but as a developer. So that's when I was like, listen, I'm going to go do this MBA because it's specific to real estate development. And at least that'll be a good starting point. And it was.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you learned the education of it, right? Before you went to the practical side, it actually did.
That's right. And you know what? It was about the education, but it was also about the people. It was a great program. I had great people. I had an amazing professor who was really inspirational to me. And through those people, you meet people in the real world, right? And that like doing the real things. And so it wasn't just, sure, there were textbooks and stuff, but it wasn't all about textbooks. It was about meeting people who were in the business and hearing their stories and figuring out which part of the business you wanted to be a part of.
Yeah, exactly. Building a network, right? Because I'm sure at some point in time you went back to some of those people or remembered stories or whatever it is to build on your experience.
Exactly.
So do you think that your education got you farther, or do you think it was your experience and network that got
Definitely experience and network, for sure. But that network did start at the, educational level. So I think it was a combination, but, since school was a year, it wasn't that long. It's, after that, you get some experience, you start meeting people, and then it's all about, meeting the right people and working with that.
Yeah. And building those relationships. For sure. I always, like, if you would have asked me 10 years ago before I was an entrepreneur, what got me further or what would get an entrepreneur or small business owner further. And at that point in time, I would have said education.
Oh, interesting.
Until I actually, yeah, because I think at that point in time, I had the, the university education behind marketing and HR and all those things. And I had experience selling and working with people, but until I actually owned my own business and did kind of all of the aspects of the business, and at that time realized that my experience, my network of people, those relationships, that actually propelled me farther faster.
Oh, absolutely. And I think also historically, like maybe, I don't know, 50, 60 years ago, education was like the bee's knees of everything. You got an MBA and it was this big deal. Whereas now I call it a master's of bugger all. Like it's nothing, right? It's like, oh, great, you have an MBA. Well, so does everybody else. Like join the club. It's not this like special thing anymore. And people are just going to an undergrad, take geography, take whatever. But why? There goes $50,000 and you know what, like how to read a map. Like unless you're going to go into that field, I have a hard time understanding why there was so much emphasis on education. But it's obviously important. I don't want to that sounded bad. I don't want to make it sound like I don't believe in it. I got an MBA and it was great, but it's not the only thing that will get somebody into a, successful position.
I agree. And I think too, times have changed so much because growing up in the 80s and 90s, when you were in high school and it was, what are you going to do with your life? No one said to you, you should start your own business. You've got a great idea, right? It was, you're going to go to school or you're going to get a university education or a trade school, or you're going to get a job. Mm-hmm. That was kind of your options, right? Like no one was promoting to have your own business or to take an idea or a passion that you have and make a career out of that.
No, definitely not. And I remember it being very much, you're going to university or nothing. Like there wasn't even, go be a plumber or whatever, which is really too bad because there's, such a need for trades and it's so important. And people don't seem to push that to their kids, even though that might be the more appropriate trajectory.
Oh, exactly. And if you look at it, if you actually sit down and look at incomes and everything now, a lot of plumbers are making more money than people with MBAs.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
Yeah. Like, I'm in construction. I know what plumbers and electricians and all, carpenters make, and it's not nothing. It's pretty expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a great avenue to go down. And a lot of those people that take those trades end up being entrepreneurs and small business owners because they start their own companies.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great trajectory.
Yeah, I agree. It's not, I don't want to say the blue collar jobs, but it's different now. There's not kind of white collar and blue collar anymore.
That's right.
It's a lot of it's a mix, and people from every job can make a lot of money, right? If they're going down the right avenues, for sure. So you started with the Airbnb, and then at the beginning you said you started with that and you bought another one, and then you had a 32-room hotel. So how do you make that decision to launch that boutique hotel? And where do you start when you have that idea?
Well, for me, this is a good story, I think. So for me, it was very different. When I had my real job that I thought was like the bee's knees of life, I bought a little Beamer for $38,000. And I was, really excited. And at the time, and still is, that's a lot of money, right? That was $38,000 for a car, for real. But I needed a car, and I thought that that's what I needed to look professional, which now I'm like, that was ridiculous. But anyway.
Yeah. At the time,
it's such a long story, but essentially that car ended up getting recalled and they took it back, and then I was going to get another one back, and all this schmoggle happened. I go back to Beamer and I'm like, listen, I don't even want the car anymore. I just want the money. Can I please have my money back? Right? I need to do something about this. I didn't obviously tell them I'm now unemployed. Give me my money back. I just said I need the money. They're like, well, we don't do that. You can't just return a car. And I'm like, yeah, but you recalled it. Anyway, long story short, they're like, you know what? If you want us to cut you a check for $38,000, you can upgrade to the next model. We'll give you financing for the entire $70,000 of the car. which means you'll have a loan for 70 grand, but in turn, you'll get a check for 38 grand. And so, looking back, I'm like, I don't understand how I fell for that, but I was like, sure, sounds great. Anything to get me $38,000 at 1.9% financing. So I signed the deal and I get this beautiful car. I now have a $70,000 Beamer, no job, all these mortgages on these Airbnb properties. And my boyfriend at the time, now husband Tim, working as a carpenter. And so I'm like, that's it. We got to start something. This is crazy. And I, like I said, had these 2 condos in Canmore, and I went and I started looking around at sites. And I had experience in this from my previous job, so it's not like I just out of nowhere was like, let's buy a site. So I ended up making an offer on a site in Canmore that was $800,000, which at the time was like, oh my gosh, where are we going to get $800,000? I'm unemployed. Tim's making whatever carpenters make at the time. But whatever, let's just take this $38,000, put it down as a deposit, figure it out from there. And that's really what happened. It was take the 38 grand, put as a deposit, tie up the land, be in a conditional period where I could start raising money. And I ran around and pounded the pavement and found investors and was able to close on the site. All the while I was working on plans with the architect, the engineers, working with the town on getting permits, all that kind of stuff, doing it all. Yeah. Where are we going to get financing? Where are we going to get a loan? Where are we going to, and a lot of it, to be totally honest, I hadn't done before, and I just had to figure it out. And that's the biggest thing about being an entrepreneur. You don't know it all. You know, maybe 5% of what you're doing. You just have to make it up.
A huge thank you to our sponsor, Just For You Day Spa and Wellness. Just For You is Canada's premier day spa with 5 locations in Alberta and Saskatchewan. The award-winning luxury spa features Leah Reese cosmetics and iconic Betty jewelry that you can also purchase online. Visit www.justforyoudayspa.com to book your service or to purchase a gift card. Yeah, you got to just figure it out. You're right. And the things that you really don't know, then you hire somebody else.
Exactly.
Right. Was the financing, when you were raising money for from the investors and the financing, was that a difficult task?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I was like, okay, so this is a $7.8 million project. I need $2 million in equity, and I can get a loan for $5.8 million. So I was told by a professional mortgage broker. I knew nothing. I was like, okay, great. Let's do that. I'll go find $2 million. You go find the debt, and off we go, and we'll build a hotel.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, that broker misrepresented the deal to a bank, and the bank changed their mind. So now we had started to spend other people's money on the site. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we've spent some of other people's money on this building and we don't have a loan. This is terrible. We're effectively bankrupt. So luckily, the broker went back out, pounded the pavement, found us the right loan for building a hospitality product. I'll never forget that first draw from the bank. So, when you're in construction, you do a draw mortgage. They don't just fund you the whole $5.8 million at once. You do it based on progress of construction. And the first draw was $1 million deposited into the business account. And I cried. I was like, oh my gosh,
thank God.
So raising the equity and finding the debt were equally impossible at the beginning because I was inexperienced, never done this before. I had no ability to sign guarantees for a loan or anything like that. I was nobody. So it was really, really, really hard. And I mean, there's a reason why there's not a lot of people out there starting real estate development companies, let alone real estate development hospitality companies, because it's so hard.
Yeah, and scary.
Oh yeah, sure. You're all in. Like that was all my money at the time. That was it. I was all in, I had the money that I had tied up in those 2 condos. I had the money I borrowed from my mom that I was paying interest on. I had a mortgage on that other condo. I was like in debt so deep, and then it's just kept going from there. So
yeah. Was there ever a time that you wanted to give up and just say, I can't do this?
I think there's snippets of those moments, during the day where it's like, why am I doing this? This is crazy. What the heck? Yeah. Why? But no, not really. No, there isn't. There's never been a defining moment where I've wanted to give up. Absolutely not.
I think someone asked me once if I had ever, like, when I was doing my business plan and figuring things out as I was going, same as you, if there was a time that I just wanted to quit or that I thought I would fail, and there wasn't. And now I don't know, you tell me what you think, but I don't know if that was blind faith in myself or if I was just dumb and thought that failure wasn't an option. But what do you think it was for you?
Yeah, exactly that. Failure wasn't an option. There's got to be a way. And I mean, there's still so many struggles I have on a day-to-day basis. Just because we've been in business since 2017, we've built all these hotels, doesn't mean we're not still raising money. We're still looking for investors all the time. We still need debt financing on our hotels. We always need to do some kind of corporate restructure or hire people or this. Like, there's always something. It's not like, oh, all of a sudden you get to this point as an entrepreneur and everything is like smooth sailing with the wind at your back. Like, no, it's always hard. It's just different. It's just different.
Yeah. And problems arise and they're just different problems that you have to find those solutions for, right? What was the hardest part when you first started?
The hardest part? Oh gosh, I guess it was finding the money, I would say. If I had to like think quickly here, it would be finding, the equity and the debt. It was hard. It was the most stressful because I knew I had the idea. I knew I had a good design. I had this great piece of land. I knew all of that, but the unknown was how on earth am I going to find, $7.8 million? Like, that's so much money.
Yeah, exactly. And I think too, it's just that overwhelming feeling.
Well, exactly. It's something I've never done before. I had no experience. I had no contacts. It's not like my parents were rich, that they were just going to cut a check. Like, I had to go find it and hustle.
Yeah, exactly. And do you think that's why you were successful in getting it? Was your hard work and dedication?
Oh, 100%. So many people would have given up. It's so hard. Oh my gosh. I was just like chasing people. And like for every yes you get to somebody like either signing up for a deal or whatever, there's like probably 20 people saying no. And then on top of that, there's probably another 5 to 10 people telling you you're stupid or you're an idiot or you don't know what you're doing or why don't you get a job or like, what are you thinking? Why are you doing this? Are you sure? Like, and on and on and on and on, right?
Yeah. And when you hear all of that, how do you keep the motivation to keep going?
Well, the more I hear that, the more I'm driven. I'm like, well, screw you. I'm going to show you, like, I am going to do this. So you can sit there and tell me I'm an idiot or be jealous or be whatever. And I smile, have a nice day, and see you later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The people that tell you can't, or I mean, now social media is a whole different world, but the people on social media that are trolls and whatnot, it's like, you may not think I can do it, but the other 100 people watching me or helping me out think I can. So I'm going to make it happen.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I think I don't like love social media. So if I ever see people post something negative or say something awful, I've never responded. I think, you know what, that person obviously has something going on to be taking the time out of their day to bash someone else. It's just really sad.
I agree. I always say that those hateful comments say way more about them than they say about
totally
you.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? So just let it go. Has social media helped you? Do you think, like, has social media gotten you more exposure?
For sure.
Or
yeah, I mean, Basecamp Resorts and all of our brands, Lamppost Hotel, Northwinds, Mountain House coming up. Yeah, they're all on social media, and it's been great for, bringing consumers to the hotel. And as of late, it's been great, for stuff like this, doing podcasts, doing interviews. It's great to get the word out about the business and about the brands.
Yeah, exactly. And it is, I mean, I have a love-hate with social media because I feel the same as you. A lot of it is, well, first of all, it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of, there are the trolls, there are all the negative, but you can really highlight your brand and you can really tell a story about, especially for you when you're dealing with hospitality, why should people come and stay at your hotel? What kind of experience are they getting, right? All those sorts of things, you can really tell that story.
That's right.
Yeah. It's a love-hate for sure. So you started with the first hotel and you obviously it worked out, you got it going. How do you make that decision, or how did you make that decision then to, like, let's do another one?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, it was interesting because the site next to my site was also for sale. And so I was like, we got to keep going. We got to buy this site. And in the meantime, people were seeing what we were doing and a group on Main Street was a family business. They wanted to sell their motel. So somebody called us and said, "Oh, I know this family wants to sell their motel. Do you want to buy it?" And I said, "Sure, let's buy this motel." And then the building on the other side of Basecamp was a hostel. It was like an old building, and it was like completely dilapidated on the inside. It was just yuck. And so I was like, sure, we could renovate that and make it Basecamp Lodge. Like, opportunities just started. I wouldn't say like landing on the doorstep. That would make it sound too easy. But through, again, our earlier points on put those deals together, raise more equity, find more debt, all of those things, and put it together.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And then I'm assuming that the third and fourth and fifth, they just similar things. Hey, and you were probably looking for those opportunities.
Yeah,
well.
I mean, I've always been a bit of what I call a deal junkie. Like, I really like doing deals. I love the business. I love the art of the negotiation, and I've also always loved going to Revelstoke. I ski and I bike and all of that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to Revelstoke, find a site there, because there's never anywhere good to stay. It's always busy. There's no good Airbnbs. And so that's how I ended up expanding out of Canmore, is finding a site in Revelstoke and starting there. And actually had a site in Canmore and in Revelstoke under construction during COVID. And that was a whole nother animal, because all of a sudden we're building these hotels and it's a pandemic. So anyway, that's a whole nother topic. But yes, we grew to Revelstoke.
Yeah. Did everything stop? I mean, I guess, yeah. And I guess too, not only are you construction, but you still had hotels open.
At the time, we had two under construction and we had 3 operating, and bookings went from like hero to zero literally overnight. We laid off 50 people in 24 hours. Like, it was total chaos. We had a bunch of other deals in the making that, we lost out on a couple of deals, to be honest, and we did lose quite a lot, but we kept going, and then the government assistance came in and all the rest of it, and so we were able to save most of the business.
Yeah. I mean, COVID is a whole other beast. I mean, I feel like it's something we'll never experience again in our lifetime. But was there anything that you had to change or modify during COVID that you kept afterwards?
No.
No. Yeah. You're like, goodbye.
No, I'm like thinking, sorry, the delayed response was because I'm like, was there anything good that came from that? No, I can't think of one thing other than the sentiment of the consumer during COVID was so bad and they were so rude to our staff. But the now post-COVID sentiment is just so fun. People want to travel. They want to be together. They want to have these experiences more than I've ever seen. And I really think that's the only good thing I can think that came of that, is just this like renowned sense of like joie de vivre, and people just want to get out of the house and have fun and make those memories and not wait for next year or the year after, let's just do it now.
Exactly. Yeah. Put more of that urgency of like, life is short. We don't know what tomorrow brings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And people think there's this ton of people who are always like, well, that's a surge. It's going to end, like, what are you going to do then? And blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I don't fundamentally believe it is a surge. I think it really, truly is a new mentality that people just want to have a good time and embrace the now. At least that's what I hope. But I feel that way. So I'm like, hopefully others do too.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing too is our world is getting smaller, because I mean, for someone like you, your customers and clientele are not just Canadians. It's people from all over the world coming.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So travel will just keep progressing and more people will come and visit, and your clientele base just grows.
Exactly.
And I foresee more spaces in your future too.
Definitely. Yeah. I
don't think you're stopping.
No, we have, right now we have 10 operating hotels. We have another 6 under various stages of construction. And then we have a whole nother pile of sites that we're, developing as we speak. And then a bunch of other ideas that I'm going to start, figuring out.
They're brewing.
Yeah, that's exactly. A good word.
Do you see yourself in the future in other parts of Canada, or do you feel like you'll stay in the Western part?
Not at all. I'm from Ontario, actually. So there's a lot of places in Ontario I would like to bring the concept. And there's a lot of places in the States as well that I'd like to go. So I'd like to be a North American company at some point.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, your growth already in under 10 years, like you're going to be everywhere in 20 years, which I love. I love
I hope you're right.
that. You know what? If you've made it this far, I feel like the sky's the limit, right?
Well, thank you. I hope so.
Yeah, you're welcome. I want to just chat a little bit about, started out with you and your husband, and now I'm assuming you have quite a large team. I don't know how many people you have, but how is that growing pains, I guess, or how did you work with bringing more people onto your team?
Oh yeah, there's always growing pains. When you're growing as fast as we are and expanding and going into different geographic areas, it's very challenging. And I would say it's really all about choosing the right people and empowering them to grow their teams, because I can't be part of hiring everybody. We have, 180 or 200 employees. Like, it's a big machine right now. And as we bring on more hotels, we're going to get, more and more people. And so it's really about surrounding yourself with people who have skills that you don't have and who are smarter than you in certain, departments of business. And I've done that, since the beginning, and it's been part of the success is the people. In fact, the people are critical. Without the good team, we wouldn't be here. Forget it.
Yeah, exactly. And you have such a diverse team, because you are not only creating, designing, building, then you move into the actual hospitality side, right? Of customer service and guest experience. So you have a huge portfolio.
Yes, absolutely. People. So yeah, we have I almost look at it as two umbrellas. One umbrella over the real estate company that does the, land acquisition, development, construction. And then it sort of hands over to operations, and operations does the marketing, the branding, the PR, the guest experience, which is our number one priority, is giving the guests, a top-notch experience. And work on repeat customers, all that stuff, right? The operations essentially. And we do everything. We do everything in-house.
Yeah, exactly. So your team is so diverse. You're not dealing with one group of people. You have so many, different groups, different skill sets and everything else. And I totally agree with you that your team is everything. You have the right people and the people that share your passion, you are going to succeed. It's going to happen.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, no, we've grown, and we have, our main office is in Canmore. We have another office in Calgary, and, we're definitely growing geographically.
That's awesome. Do you have a most important lesson that you could share that you've learned along the way?
Yeah, I would say we kind of talked about it, which is don't listen to what other people say when they're being negative. Don't let anyone talk you out of your dream. Don't, just if someone thinks they have a good idea and, they've done an adequate amount of research and make sure it actually is a good idea, to not be scared to try it. I had other businesses I tried in the past and they failed. Big deal, right? If you try one, try another one, it's not a failure, it's a learning, So my biggest advice, since we're talking about entrepreneurs and two entrepreneurs, would be to, not just do it, right? That's so cheesy, but it's just go do it.
I always say Nike can be our sponsor. Just do it, right?
Yeah. And it's true, because everything is scary, whether you're starting a business, whether you're trying to compete at a high level in sports, whether you're running for the next, big job at the company or whatever, it's all scary.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. And what's the worst thing that happens? If it fails, you're still alive. You're still here.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I tell people all the time. I say, don't be afraid to ask, because if they say no, you're in the same place. So try it. You never know what's going to happen.
Exactly. Isn't that the truth? I mean, worst case scenario, someone says no to you.
Yeah, big deal.
Right? It's not the end.
I know, and I wish they taught these kinds of lessons, when you're a kid in school, instead of I don't remember what we learned, but I'm sure it was great. But, I feel like these things are so important, and there's not enough focus on them.
I agree. And it's realistic in reality, right? Because it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or you work a career job, whatever it is, someone's going to tell you no at some time, and that's okay.
Exactly.
You can just continue on, right? Is there anything you wish you had known?
Anything I wish I had known? Gosh, I can't think of anything in particular, but I guess if if we can spin that a little bit to, what are my, weak points or areas of learning that I wish I knew right now, is I'm definitely not the number one, employee motivation, like spend time working on KPIs, this, that, and the other. Like, I'm the visionary. I go out and I find sites and get deals and find investors and do all that. And I think I wish I knew a bit more about, the fine-tuned skills of making everybody at the executive level feel good.
Yeah. And I think it's tricky too, because if that's not your passion or your focus, right, then it's not something that you probably want to spend the time.
Well, exactly. Yeah. We're so busy trying to build hotels. It's like, having all these like feel good conversations. I want to, but it's like, the next thing you know, it's end of the day, maybe tomorrow. So
yeah, exactly. But maybe that's the point when you bring someone into your team that can take care of that.
Well, and I am. We do have we have a new president of real estate starting next week, actually, so he can do all that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. I always tell people, if you're not great in an area, find somebody else that can take care of it for you. Focus on the stuff that you're good at and that you like and that you enjoy doing, right? Because that's where you're going to propel yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Sky. I know that people are going to want to check out you and also your hotels. So where can they find you, or where can they learn more about your spaces?
Yeah, our hotel website is Basecamp Resorts, which is plural.com. And then for me, I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, not very much, but we're growing the presence out there. So.
Yeah.
And then Basecamp, the hotels are on all those social media platforms as well.
I love it. Thank you so much, Sky. It was great talking with you and just learning more about hospitality from development right to people coming. That's super cool. So thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it. And for those of you listening, we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to Winning. Be sure to subscribe to get all of our new episodes. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post about it on social media and leave a rating and review wherever you listen to Winning. To catch all of the latest from us, you can follow Winning Podcast on Instagram at winning_podcast, Facebook at Winning Podcast, and on Twitter at Winning Pod. Winning was created and is produced by me, Mackenzie Kilshaw. Music created by Summer Furby. Editing by Seth Armstrong. Special thanks to Shauna Foster for voicing our opening. And of course, a huge thank you to this episode's guest. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.